Today on Jab Scrap Customs, we're in the shop and we're going to be working on the buggy. So this is our Zook buggy, and when we first got this thing, it originally had a back seat in it. That was prior to when we had it, but at one point there was a back seat back here. And that was why we got it, was we wanted a family rig, and we already had Sadie at the time. Now we have Oliver. And it's time to finally do this, and I've been putting it off. I even had this thing up for trade at one point because I've just been, I didn't want another project, but here we are, and we're gonna tackle it. So one of the things is all this stuff's in the way, and we're gonna have to move some of this stuff around and make this all work. It's not just a simple task of just putting the back seat in here, putting some tabs in. We're gonna have to relocate some stuff, and there's not a whole lot of room on this thing. It's gonna suck losing all this storage, but it'll be nice to have something we can take the kids out in. They'll be safe in it. Another thing is we gotta build something to keep the kids safe from the dry shaft. We cannot have their feet dangling down there with nothing down there. So I got all this stuff unstrapped already. We're gonna get it all out of here, and we'll get a better look at what we're dealing with here. Alright, now that we got all this stuff out, we can kind of see what's going on back here. So, this tray is welded to the chassis in a couple spots. So, we're going to go in and we're going to cut on both sides of those welds, and we'll leave that down for right now just to get the tray out of the way. And then, we got to unbolt the power steering cooler. And then we got to remove that fuel line because that runs through there. Probably a couple other odds and ends that we'll find along the way. Then we can at least get the tray out, and we can start figuring out where we're going to put some of the stuff and start figuring out how we're going to mount the back seat. But like I said, this is going to be a little bit of a challenge to kind of figure out how we want to do the floor. It won't be super hard, but I want it to be safe. So figure out how we're going to do that, keep the kids away from the dry shaft, and we'll have a back seat in it before too long. Okay, we have the cooler unbolted, so now what I'm hoping is we can just slide it up between the two seats for right now, get it out of the way. The lines are kind of all crossed under the trans cooler right now. So if we can just get it out of the way till we can get the tray out of here, and then we can figure out where we're going to mount the trans cooler, or sorry, the power steering cooler. Lay it right up there for right now. And then these are, okay, those aren't in the way. So now we just got to move the fuel line. And then we can cut the welds and get the tray out of there. So we're gonna go ahead and leave this fuel line in place for right now. We're gonna cut around it because I don't want, if there is any gas in there, it to spill everywhere while we're cutting. So we're going to find a pre-used cutoff wheel. It should work perfectly to cut this tray out of here. Tray is free. Now we can get the tray out of there. We can cut those little pieces the rest of the way off. We'll get the fuel line out of the way so we can get that out. And then the tray is still reusable too. We didn't completely ruin that. So we got the fuel line disconnected. There was a little bit of fuel in it, and that's what I was worried about with throwing sparks with the grinder. So I think that was a better option there. We're gonna cut the zip tie holding that. I want to kind of try to revisit some of the stuff, get rid of some of the zip ties too, clean it up a little bit, and yeah, Tray's ready to come out. And the tray is out. Well, there it is. We'll get those little bits of the tray left off there. And I'm thinking we might be able to mount the seat directly to that. That is angle iron. We'll have to grab the seat. First we gotta find it. I don't know where it's at right now. It's somewhere in here. So we'll see how it fits and go from there. Back seat in. That took quite a bit of doing. We had to move the seat around quite a bit. We ended up having to unbolt the trans cooler. We ended up having to take the brackets off the top of the fuel cell because those were trying to cut into the back of the seat. Seat's in, but there's not a lot of leg room. So we're gonna get into this a lot more than what I was hoping to. So we're gonna move the seat back a little bit farther, but in order to do so, we have to cut that tube out of the way. And then we're gonna relocate the tube, maybe add a couple more. So we're gonna get to cutting. Okay. So that'll give more leg room. We'll put the tube back across here. I think we'll add something up here just because we cut that out. Make me feel a little bit better to add some more tube in there. So I squeezed in here, and I'm about 6 foot tall. The floor pan will be right about where my feet are at, I'm hoping. We're gonna have to do some cycling of the suspension to see where the drive shaft's gonna go. But not the most comfortable thing, but you can definitely fit back here. 6 foot tall, not a whole lot of headroom, but you still have some. But it should be perfect for the kids for a little bit. So yeah, we're gonna keep moving forward with this. I'm liking it so far. And now the fun part to get out. Oh.
Hey, don't you know you're supposed to go head first?
Okay. So, alright, so we just got home from work, back out here to the buggy, and I got the power steering cooler out with minimal-ish mess. I ended up just cut the lines with the grinder. Gotta pull all the lines through the chassis and get them routed up to the front so we can mount the cooler up here in front of the radiator. We had to stop at Air Gas and get a welding tank because we're out, of course. So yeah, back on this today. Hopefully we can make a little bit of headway. We gotta have power steering cooler back in it at the very minimum so we can put it back in its spot so we can pull the Ford back in. So I think it might rain tomorrow. So yeah, we're gonna keep plugging away at this. I'm gonna start pulling the lines through and get them up to the front, and then we can get a mount made and welded onto the front of the buggy. Okay, so we were going to make brackets and weld onto the chassis for the power steering cooler, but I think I have some riv nuts left, and I have some really cool purple washers for the Allens. So I think we're going to install some riv nuts into the chassis and mount the power steering cooler up there like that. Well, we just had a mini panic attack. The trans cooler lines and the power steering lines run right next to each other, and they look the exact same. It looked like those were just running into the transmission. Those were not the ones I wanted to cut, but we cut the right ones. Okay, well now that our arms are completely covered in fiberglass and all itchy because all this heat wrap, we got the lines out. They were stuck up against the heat shield on the bottom of the floor and in with these other lines, so they are now out of that section, and now we should be into the easier section of the frame, and we can keep working our way forward and then figure out where we're going to route them and start mounting that cooler. Okay, here's our lines. They're out of the frame. Now we're gonna do some gandering and see how we want to route these. So far, every one of these is dull. Okay, so we got one riv nut installed. So we're gonna start on this other side. Got the hole marked where I want it to be, and then we'll start drilling that hole and put the other riv nut in. So I don't have the hand strength it takes with this one to get these riv nuts installed properly. I think I'm going to get a pneumatic one, but for right now, we grabbed C-clamp and seems to be in there pretty good. So we'll see. If it comes out, we know that we gotta do something else. And as in something else, I mean a pneumatic riv nut installer. So we're gonna drill this hole and get the other riv nut installed. Like I said, I think I'm definitely gonna buy a pneumatic one of these because these riv nuts are super handy, but by hand, I have not had the greatest success rate with them sticking. Just like that. We'll have to do another one down there, and we'll try and get another one in there. But that'll be how the power steering cooler will be installed, and that's just about done. So I'm gonna finish that up, and then we'll start on the lines. Okay, so we got the trans cooler all mounted. We got all the riv nuts in it. We did manage to get all 4 riv nuts in to the chassis. So now we're working on routing the power steering lines. We're going to zip tie them up into place for right now. It's not exactly how I want to do it. Later on, we'll maybe readdress that. Probably not. They'll probably stay zip tied. That's how they were before, and that's probably how they'll be. But I'd like to tell myself that we're going to address that. So for that one, we're going to come out of the resi and we're gonna follow the shock hoop up and around and behind. So I got that one figured out. We'll get that mounted up there, figure out where we need to cut it, and then we have some spare line that we can put in the toolbox and just have some spare line with us. That actually looks like it'd be enough to fix that if it ever broke. So we're gonna go ahead and route that one and then start figuring out how to route the other one. The other one, I'm not 100% sure how I want to route it because, you know what? We may have just figured it out. We might just come straight on. We'll get rid of the zip tie down there off the hoop and reroute that line. I don't know, we'll see. But let's get this one mounted up. So. Okay. That line is now routed. And installed. So that line will go through there, next to the headlight, up through the shock hoop, and then down to the resi. So like I said, we'll try and tidy that up a little bit more at some point. And yeah. But for right now, that's gonna work. And now on to the next line, which we won't bore you guys with that one. I'm gonna figure out how I want to route that, and then we'll show you guys what it looks like when we're all finished up here. Okay, it's all routed. We're gonna clean it all up, snip all the tails, and make sure it all works, and then we'll really clean this up. But I think it should work. Actually, you know what? Let's do a quick hood test. Make sure that those lines are out of the way. They should be. Yep. Those clear. So now the cooler's mounted up front, which, from my understanding, this style cooler is supposed to get airflow, and it was back here. I'm sure the longer lines probably helped, but maybe this will be better for the cooler up here. We'll see. But regardless, the cooler needed to move. So now the cooler's up front. I'm gonna wash my hands, fire this thing up, and see if everything works, and try and work the air out of the system and make sure we don't have any leaks. So we'll do that real quick, and then it's time to go in for the evening. Okay, buggy's running. So far, no leaks. We'll have to get that later. We'll check the fluid level after this, but power steering cooler, done. Check that off the list. It's time to clean up and go in for the night. All right, it's Friday. We're home from work and we're back out in the shop. So far we have cut a couple brackets off, just some boring stuff that we knocked out real quick. Got the brackets cut out for the trans cooler. That's just sitting down there now, so that's completely out of the way. We're gonna start getting the seat mounted up. I pulled the sides off so we can access down into here a little bit better. And now we can start figuring out how we're going to mount this thing. So what I'm thinking that I'm going to do is, we have some angle iron over here. We're going to take the angle iron and we are going to cut it, and it's going to run to the existing tabs that are already on the seat. It'll run long ways across the bracket, or the tray brackets are already there, and we'll bolt the seat to that, and then that should give us a nice structure for the seat. And then we can start filling in underneath the seat so that we don't have anything that can come up through the bottom and hurt any of the passengers. So we're going to start getting the angle iron cut up, drill some holes in it, and try and get the seat actually mounted. Then we can start working on the trans cooler, get that mounted. I think we're going to mount that back here behind the seat, just off to the side farther. So let's get to it. Okay, so we got both pieces cut. So I'm not going to be able to do this and film at the same time. But basically, this hole is going to be 4 inches back from, or I should say 4 inches up from the back of the angle iron. So we'll get that hole marked, drilled out, and then we'll also mark this one, get both these holes drilled, and get the seat bolted to the brackets. So a couple weeks ago, it was actually 4th of July weekend, I think it was, picked up a new drill press. So I'm kind of excited to get to use this thing. It's got some really handy tables on it. You can really get precise with where your part's going to be and lock it in really good so it doesn't move on you. So we're going to put a bit in this thing, plug it in, and drill some holes. Okay, that should work. So now we just gotta drill that hole and check it in the buggy. Okay, so both seat rails bolted to the seat. We're getting ready to try and put the seat in the buggy. Hopefully it fits with the rails attached to it. That'll be fun. And I'm gonna try and struggle to get this thing in there by myself. Okay, now I get up above. Okay, there we go. Okay. Luckily Sierra came out here. But the seat is now sitting in the buggy with the rails under it. So now we can go ahead and get those tacked in place, and then we can unbolt the seat and finish weld the rails in once we get the seat centered and where we want it. Okay, we're going to go ahead and finish weld the brackets in. Okay, that side's done. Didn't turn out too bad. I always struggle because we have a different welder at work than this one, and every welder welds differently. I'm not making excuses. It's just it's hard to get used to your own welder again whenever you haven't used it in a while. But those should definitely hold. So now we'll move on to the other side and finish the other side up, and then we can move on to the floor and the trans cooler. Okay, so we put the seat back in. we're trying to figure out how we want to mount the cooler, and where we came up with the cooler location, need to make sure the seat was going to fit nicely. So the cooler is going to sit somewhere in here, and the idea behind that is the fans pull through the cooler, and we don't want to be pulling all the hot air into the buggy because the buggy's already hot. So we don't want to be blowing the hot air on the kids. The exhaust ends down here. It's kind of hard to see, but the exhaust is right there. So the hope is with the fans pulling, it'll be pushing down on the exhaust gases and pushing them away from the cockpit area or the passenger area. So we're going to make a cardboard template, try and get this thing mounted up somewhere in here, and then we can start working on the floor and start wrapping this project up. All right, so we got our template marked out onto the steel. We're gonna cut it out, and we'll get it tacked into place. We got to drill some holes in it, and then we can get the cooler partially mounted, build the other bracket, keep moving. Okay, got the piece cut out. Now we gotta clean it up and then tack into place. Oh, look at that, butter. Amazing what a good bit will do. Okay, so we're gonna tack weld the cooler bracket in, and then we can work on the other side. So at the beginning of that weld, I don't think I got all the paint, but got it burn in there. So now the trans cooler is gonna sit. That's new home right there. We're gonna keep plugging away at more stuff. It's getting kind of late, but we'll see where we end up tonight. All right, so we got the trans cooler completely mounted. Pretty happy with that. We brought the toolbox in. Now we're gonna start cutting it apart. So that's gonna be the floor. We're trying to figure that out right now. So we're gonna start cutting this thing apart. We're running low on battery. So we're gonna do the bare minimum right now and just show you guys kind of what's going on. Okay, now we can just cut the lid out. That ain't gonna work. So the plan changed, and it just wasn't gonna work out how I originally wanted it to. So I'll show you what we got going on here. So originally, this is the sheet of aluminum that we cut out. It's a lot thinner than what I was hoping for. Once we got it cut, it's too flimsy. So we were originally gonna have just a piece of tube across, and that was going to protect from the dry shaft if it ever came apart. But there wasn't enough support for the aluminum. It would just fold and it wouldn't even make a good floor. So there's existing seat tabs off the back of that tube up there. So I bolted the angle iron to it, and then it's all tack welded in place right now, but it's going to bolt to the seat frame as well. And then the whole floor can be removed and not be a permanent structure. So if we ever need to work on it, we can still get to it. We're gonna add a couple pieces of, I think, round tube, I think is what we're gonna end up going with. Across the angle iron, that'll keep the dry shaft down there if anything ever happens. And then, like I said, we're gonna put a plate under the seat, keep from having six come up. So that's where we're at right now. Plans changed. Trans cooler is all mounted. We're up till about 4 in the morning working on this thing. So we're gonna continue on, keep moving forward. Hopefully have this thing done by the end of the weekend. Wanted to have it done yesterday, but it just, you know how that goes. It never gets done when you want it to get done. But that's part of it. So we're gonna drill some holes so we can mount that angle iron to the seat bracket. And then once that's done, we can cut the tack welds off and start welding in some cross members into the floor pan. And then we can start building the floor pan. Okay, so we made it in here. We got our hole marked where it needs to be, and we got it center punched. So now we gotta drill through it. This is not the best working area, but part of it. Here we go. Okay, when a hole drilled, we'll open it up a little bit more. But yeah, we're drilling through 2 pieces of metal here, so it's not exactly the funnest angle, but it is what it is. Once this is done, we'll be able to get this out, finish up. I'm ready for this project to be done. Okay, holes are drilled, bolts are in. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this piece of tube and we're going to cut it so it fits underneath, and then we will tack it in place. And then I think we're gonna add one more back here at the very back of this, and then we'll unbolt it all, cut the tack welds, fully weld all that, and then the frame of the floor pan will be complete. And then we can bolt it in for the last time and start making the actual pan itself. Okay, we got our tube marked. We're gonna cut it down and we'll put it in the floor frame and see if it fits. And if it fits, we'll tack weld it in place. And then make a couple more. And then pull it out and fully weld it. Oh, that's cool. It's not straight because it kicked to stay, so it cut crooked. Always fun. So we'll have a nice gap to fill, but it'll work. Just make sure to weld it in pretty good. So we'll get this other one cut and tack them in. Okay, so we are going to put it right there. I was looking up here. I thought about putting another one up there in case the dry shaft ever, if we lost the bolts. I didn't want the dry shaft yoke to be able to come back, but looking at it, there isn't enough slip in the dry shaft to allow the yoke to come all the way back into here to get it up into this area. So, and we try to check the dry shaft bolts every time before we go out too, so that shouldn't be an issue. So we're going to put it here because that's got the greatest chance of area for rock to get up into. So we got it marked out. We're going to get this thing tacked in place. We'll pull all this out and finish weld it. Alright, time to cut the tacks, unbolt this thing, and get it out of here. I decided I didn't like this tube here underneath the angle iron because there was nothing supporting these side to side. So I moved that one up. We'll weld those other ones in place, and then we can bolt the floor pan or the floor frame in. Once we get back, we're going to finish weld this and get it all back up into the buggy. Alright, so we're getting ready to mount the harness bar, and I marked on the cage where the top of the seat was. So I already notched the one side, so I just need to measure how far the distance is between these two tubes so we can go ahead and notch this other side of the tube. Then we can weld that in, and then we're almost wrapped up with this. Okay, so we got it marked 32 inches. Now we're going to go over to the notcher, notch this tube, and then we can get it tacked into place and go from there. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and cut off this extra material, and then we'll slide it back, notch it, and test fit. So I'm going to go a little bit longer with this just to make sure that we don't go too short with it, and then we can always take it over to the bench grinder and clean it up some, get it where we want it. But I'd rather cut it a little bit long in this instance than too short because we don't have any more of this tube. Okay, here we go. All right, so Sierra just came out here, helped me. We got the seat in. It fits with this tube in there. We can get the seat in and out. So now we're gonna finish weld this. I'll show what we did last night. And yeah, we're about wrapped up with this project. So we're gonna finish weld this. So that's fully welded in now. Didn't turn out too terrible. Last night we went ahead and we just finished welded this. We didn't get home till super late, so I just came out here and just knocked that out. We've cleaned up a little bit of the way that the lines were routed and stuff. So I have the floor pan cut out. I just need to notch where the fuel lines come through so we don't rub a hole in them. So I think at this point we're just waiting on harnesses. We need to do the pan under the seat and button up a couple little wiring and just little details, and this will be completed. I'm so glad this is about done. We were supposed to do this about 4 years ago and finally getting to it, but at least it's almost done. So we'll probably just button everything up and then just show the final bit, because it's just a bunch of odds and ends stuff at this point. So that's it for right now. We'll show you the finished product and we'll see how the kids fit.
Go on.
Well, cutting the toolbox up so we can try and make a heat shield so it's not so hot in the buggy. So we got it all cut out. We're gonna leave this on. Hopefully this will also help dissipate some heat because it's gonna run right over the exhaust. We're getting ready to cut out these spots where the floor pan bolts in, because I don't want this part of the floor pan. This needs to be separate. So we're going to separate this with probably some washers or some sort of spacers, and we're going to bolt it to the floor pan, and hopefully it'll keep some of the heat out, because the exhaust runs right under your feet. And we wrapped it. It was wrapped before, but it's still really hot. So we're going to see what this will do. If I recall right, aluminum's supposed to help dissipate heat, so we'll see what this does. Alright, so it's finally the weekend, it's Saturday, and the buggy is done for right now. And we're going to show you guys the finished product of how the back seat came out, and then here in a little bit we're actually going to go to a pig roast and we're going to do kind of a little test and tune, see how the back seat works. So far we do know we have to get a booster seat for the kids. They're a little small, so we're going to try and put some booster seats in that we have, but we're most likely going to order some. For what we're doing tonight, it's mostly flat trails, so it'll be okay. We're not going to put our kids in danger, but we do know we need to get some booster seats. So we'll get some footage of that here in a little bit. Some of my other buddies are out there with their rigs, but here's what we came up with, and here's the finished product of everything. So the back seat is in. We got our harnesses from PRP. We got the Shreddy harnesses. They have some of the same colors in them. I think the booster seats we're looking at have pink stitching in them, so that'll bring out the pink and just kind of tie it all together. That's Sadie's favorite color, so she'll be thrilled about that. Got the floor in it. Everything's all ready to go. That's their harness bar. So we got to put some paint on it, but that is the final product of the buggy with the back seat. And as time goes on, we might see that we need to make some changes. That's kind of part of it. But they're so little right now that I always forget how little our kids are till I put them in like the back seat. Their feet don't even touch the floor. Sadie's tiny, and Oliver, he's only 1, so they got some growing to do to fit in this thing, but they have plenty of room to grow into it, so that's cool. We'll be able to keep this set up for a good long time, probably until they're ready to start driving their own rig. So here's the underside of it. We have the seat pan underneath to protect from sticks and stuff going to the bottom of the seat. There's the front floor pan, and that all bolts in so it can be removed if we ever needed to. So I don't think it turned out too bad. I'm pretty excited to take the kids wheeling with us this evening. It's been a long time coming that we've wanted to do this, so now we can finally safely do it. They're not going to be riding on our lap. They'll be in a seat all safely. So, like I said, we're going to load up, get everything ready to go, and we're going to go do some wheeling and hanging out with some friends and do a little partying. So, thanks for watching this section. Let us know if you liked it. Let us know if you want to see more content of us building some stuff, or if you just want to stick to trail riding stuff. So, I'm going to load up.